habits, reading lots of books and doing trainings on the psychology of habit change, and then also just years and years of reading about nutrition in general. And now you're really kind of starting at the ground base, and you've learned a lot of the endocrinology and a lot of the the foundational reasons behind stuff. And I'm really kind of proud just to see you be equipped as a kind of a coach that can really help the wellness of others in ways that I probably couldn't fathom because of just my mentality. And this isn't much of a mental switch for me because it's always been who I am. But we in the very beginning kind of talked about like years ago with my friend Anthony Balduzzi. Shout out to AB. He and I would talk about, we call the on switch. And we would talk to you about it and to others and his girlfriend at the time, Lex, and about what is it that takes someone who's just starting to train at a later stage in life, and when do they flip from it being something they do to something they are, to someone who they are. And I can't give you that reason, but it's
Since you've always been on?
I've always been on, so I just kind of think it's a fascinating journey to watch you kind of flip that switch on, and we've kind of at different times talked about it, but it's fascinating.
I think what I would say to anyone, and I think what influenced me the most, is you have to stay with it longer than you think. I think people read things and they get excited about getting healthy, or they see. They talk about this fit inspiration, and you see all these things out there. You have the pressure of an event coming up. You want to look a certain way, and you throw yourself into, maybe a training or a nutrition program, and it can really burn you out. It's such a change in your way of being, in your day-to-day life, that I think before you get burned out, I think you have to find your point of comfort. I know for me, when I first started working out, I definitely didn't work out every day. I worked out with a trainer twice a week for a half hour. I just wanted to, it wasn't with you, obviously, but I just wanted to learn how to use weights. I wanted to get stronger, and I didn't want to get hurt. So I didn't have any lofty expectations that, I was going to look amazing after a month. I think you have to be realistic. You have to set goals and be realistic about them, and see what habits can fit into your life, and then just stick with it longer. And I think, a little bit, that was, I think, connected a little bit with our relationship, because you were my trainer. I kind of started to dive deeper, and I stayed with it. And I think that people need to stay with it long enough that it becomes part of who they are, and they start to experience how much better they feel. And that just doesn't happen overnight.
And just so everybody knows, like, you haven't actually stayed with it because you're with me. In fact, we actually broke up for a time, and you were still very much in it. And when we got back together, it was there was no disconnect in that, and so you definitely fully switched it on, right?
But I think my point is that in the beginning, when you're just sort of starting out with changing your lifestyle, you have to fit it into your life. You have to be realistic about what can actually happen to your body, because you just can't look like a fitness model overnight.
Right.
And I think you have to stay with it long enough so you can start to experience how much better you feel. And I think you inspired me in a lot of those ways, but any number of things can inspire somebody. It's just, a trip to the mall, going down a dress size, being able to run with your kids, so just starting to experience those aha moments where you're like, wow, I feel so much better. It's so worth it to make that commitment to myself and get to the gym and, make those salads, for work the next day. And that's what pushes you through.
And I, before we move on to hit some questions, what I want to touch on is what you said there, and I wrote it down because I'm going to use it and steal it from you, is longer than you think. Because what you think is not real. Like, what you think, we need to realign the way that you think. We need to realign your filter. We need to change what you think, because you are what's standing in your way, right? Like, it's your misthoughts. It's what you veer. It's taking you away from truth. It's from center, right?
Well, also too, just a little part of too with my saying, like, how you kind of gave me that inspiration. I had been working out with this other trainer for, several months, and with what limited knowledge I had at the time, I thought I was putting in a lot of effort and a lot of work, and I was like, other than my shoulders kind of looking bigger, I didn't feel like, I was like, my abs don't look tighter, like, nothing's really changing, like, why am I even I didn't feel, right, start to feel the difference yet, so I was like, what am I doing, like, is this worth my time, is this gym membership worth my money, and then you start to spiral, and that's how you talk yourself out of it. So it is longer than you think.
And it's I love that saying. I'm going to take that. It's longer than you think. So we have to change what you think. And when that changes, I think maybe it's the on switch. It's whatever you think in your somehow limited sphere of experience and knowledge coming into these things. If you want to make wellness and fitness a part of your life, then you have to change the way you think about it and the way that you think. And kind of longer than you think, for me, kind of harkens back to a story when I was in high school, when I did some unhealthy stuff, but just...
it's all it's all your knowledge at the time.
Right.
So,
well, yeah, I was in high school. I mean,
right,
but my friends and I had this absolute epic... I don't know. We thought Wegmans was bigger than life, because it was this huge.
It was far from where we lived.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
It's like a solid 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And like we just heard these amazing stories about Wegmans and about how large it was and about the wall of candy and nuts and chocolate covered coffee beans, and it seemed like Wally Wonka. It just seemed
Willy Wonka.
Willy.
Wally Wonka.
It sounded like Willy Wonka, like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, right? It was like this chocolate factory, Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, and we had this was MapQuest days. Like, this was back before cell phones, before GPS.
I'm too young to know about such things.
Right, you're right. My bad. Well, let me inform you. I don't even know if they exist anymore. So for those who don't know, too young, it was precursor to Google Maps and was abysmal. I mean, it was abysmal. So you would look up directions, you would print them out, and then you'd be driving. We were driving, of course, because we had heard that it was, open till 2 a.m. or maybe that one was even 24 hours, that we were going to make this venture at like 12:30 at night because it was this like quest. And so we're trying to read the directions in the dark off the MapQuest directions. And we end off like panicking because we think we've gone too far, and so we get off the main highway 287 in New Jersey, and we get off at 202 toward Flemington, and we got off way too early, and we're like, oh man, we just keep going and going and going and going
chocolates.
and going and going and going, and like and I remember distinctly, and I'll bring it back to this point, I remember distinctly the guys being like, I think we missed it, we need to turn around, and I'm like no, it's just, you have to go to the point that you lose all hope, and it's just around the corner. And sure enough, we went to a point where I basically had given up. In 10 minutes.
There it appeared.
And like literally like 3 more miles down the road.
That's kind of funny.
It showed up. And so when I was giving a description to other people how to get there, I was like, all right, first of all, don't get off 287 too early. Get off at this one, but then still stay on it. And I want you to go until you lose hope. That was my description. That was my directions. Go until you lose hope, and then go further. Mm-hmm. Longer than you think.
Yeah.
And the same is with training and diet. It's longer than you think. I think it's awesome.
And it reminds me of a quote that I see around once in a while because I don't think it's as popular. And it's something along the lines that summer bodies are made in the winter. And I think everyone wants this quick fix.
That's cool.
They want the summer's like, oh, shoot, summer's around the corner. I got to get my act together. And it's just not that simple. You can't put that kind of pressure on yourself because it just takes time. It takes commitment and it takes time. Yes, you can make improvements, but you're not going to get where you want to go.
I would even go as far as to say that if you're not willing to give it a year, your mind's in the wrong place.
Yeah. So actually, related, we could start with my question to you as a trainer, because we've been talking about that. And I've been working out or training fairly seriously for, I think our training anniversary is coming up, so it'll be 4 years. So that's a decent amount of time.
100%.
And I've definitely made huge strides.
Yes.
I mean, I look so different. I feel a lot different, and I'm much, much stronger. I was never an athletic girl, but in my training and just in my athletic development, my glutes are lacking. Mm-hmm. And this is something I've been targeting. I mean, how long now?
3.5 years. 3 years.
I mean, and it's better. It's improved. I've gotten stronger, but I'm certainly not where I want to be at. Mm. So my weak point is sort of that inner, what would you call that? It's like the top inner thigh area.
Well, it's
like the bottom of your bottom.
It's the crease between the glute and the ham, but on the... So they're of the hamstring, the 3 hamstring muscles. One of them attaches more toward the outside of the butt, and the other 2 enter in more toward the inner cheek.
Yeah. And I'm sure there's other women out there who do not have super defined
inner cheeks
and glutes, but it's sort of not something we talk about, and it's not something you're going to be able to search, like at least a nice girl's Instagram and see. So.
Right. So that's an interesting point, because you've actually built substantial strength and mass in the outer, the crease between the glute and the ham on the outer cheek, the middle glute and the top glute.
I think those are a little easier to target. And I know for me, working in a corporate environment for so long, all I did was sit. Right. All day. I mean, you're terrified to leave your seat because someone will be looking for you.
So if you were riding horseback, it's the inner glute that'd be hitting the horseback. And I think that a lot of women mistake this for the inner outer thigh machine, because you're sitting down and you're squeezing your thighs together.
But that is sort of ironic, because again, you're sitting.
Right, because So you're in hip flexion, meaning that you're sitting, so your hips are creased and bent, and you're not even standing at full extension, with your hips under you and pressed forward. And really, your glute development, there are 2 main reasons. So I'll talk just about the overall reason and then specifically to that area. Overall, just changing your movement parameters and smoothing your movement out, it really was the main impulse to improving your aesthetic and also your strength. And that took you so far until we then needed to kind of take a few steps back, and what I discovered was you had some deficiencies, some weak points, and some immobility issues that made it so that you weren't hitting positions.
But again, you also have to take steps back.
Correct.
All the time. You have to take steps back to get further. And people don't want to do that either.
People don't want to take 3 steps back.
I was squatting. What was I squatting? It was a decent, not a great amount of weight, but for me it was...
You were up to 115. You were up to body weight.
Yeah, I was up to my body weight.
For 5.
Yeah. So
Not 1 for, you were body weight squat for 5.
And then I was starting to have problems with my knees and like my shoulder, because I was shifting, because I was trying to balance all these other issues, and that's when it became apparent. And that's when you have to be willing to be like, okay, I have some work to do, and it's not glamorous work.
Right. And
it's like, not overnight.
And you know what? Like, in your benefit by having me alongside of you was saying to you, take a step back. You need to take 3 steps back to move.
Well, of course
John North says 50 steps forward. Of course not. But,
no one wants to. It's frustrating.
The other false sort of assumption is that it's the squat's fault. It's the movement's fault. It's not the squat's fault. It's your fault. So something's going wrong. And when I pulled you back and I saw, because there were large amounts of time, because we were at a distance relationship, you were thousands of miles away. I was in Texas and you were in New Jersey. Mm-hmm. I didn't have my eyes on you. So
and I wasn't equipped to really take video of myself. So I was feeling okay. So
And the video
It's harder
wasn't
to
as
manage.
the video wasn't as available. Honestly, we had early Android phones. We didn't have iPhones until
that
this
was more recent. Yeah.
last year. There's a major difference in how many pictures we have of each other and ourselves and as a couple because we got iPhones.
Self